Countdown's going. Good job, Brooklyn. They're down 21-4. This is why I start trying to blind taste test beers later in the night at this place. Oh, no, there's no 4 beers now. Yeah, it's my choice. What?
So 2 weeks ago,
You good though? Okay.
I don't know if what I was hearing was my mic.
Should have been, but I also have with this board. I have what's called. Oh yeah, that's right. Wasn't that Wednesday that you got ready? Like 2 Wednesdays ago?
yeah, I still haven't gotten the report. They still haven't let me take it to the adjuster. Pissed off message came out 2 days.
Yeah, 2 weeks and not even a fucking rental car. That's ridiculous. So wait, so what are you driving?
So
looking for a hollow twist in Baton Rouge. If you're not familiar, if you're not familiar, we are on Perkins Road, just behind Solu. Great spot, man. Awesome place. We love coming here every single week. I'm Solo. This is T-Bob's in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. So T-Bob and his crew, they're hanging out at the Senior Bowl all week. Doing a great job covering that event. And we talk a lot of the movers and the shakers and bigger news around the NFL. That came today with Tom Brady announcing his retirement this morning. So to get into that, a little bit of a different format when I'm solo here. So if you're watching live, thank you for smash that like button. Subscribe to YouTube. If you are watching on Facebook, please like the page, share the post. If you are listening or watching on any channel you can, there's a link to subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. So, excited about the show. It's a little bit of a different format. We need just a ton of Q&A. There's a lot of stuff we can talk about, but it's just way better if we're interacting. So drop your questions, drop your comments. We'll keep it going. For those that are familiar with what I do on the we'll kind of go down. So literally just anything about anything. So we will talk about Tom Brady's retirement and most notably what that means for the NFC South, which is going to be a freaking miserable quarterback division. I mean, holy hell, you're talking about with Tom Brady out, very likely looking at Dane Garrett in Tampa, Sam Darnold in Carolina, Andy Dalton in New Orleans, and Desmond Ritter in Atlanta. I mean, it may be, like, I need to do some research. It may be. No, yeah, no audio.
I see the audio. I'm looking at the audio. That doesn't make any sense. I don't either. I mean, I'm looking at levels and I tested the mic earlier. Can you hear it? Who's got it on here? You can hear him talk. I don't think that's the problem. When you put that down, it check. One, two, check. Check, check, check. It's popping whenever you speak it to it. But it's not. That's the thing.
live on there.
I know, but
That's what's happening. It's not.
One, two, check. 1, 2, check. Check, check, check. 1, 2, check. Check, 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 check. 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check. Check, check. I got low. My mic is feeding this. That could just be this microphone, Moose. 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check. Check, check, check. 1, 2, check. There we go. Check, 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 check. 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check. All right, we're good. Okay. Here we go. We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. Yeah, I can hear myself, and we're good here. We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. All right. Thank you for your patience there. We're going to start over, and I'm going to have to do like a formal start over for the podcast version that's going to come later. So, all right. What's up, everybody? Welcome in to Scone T from Oliver Twist on Perkins Road in Baton Rouge, just behind Solu near Essen. We appreciate you for being just Scone tonight, sans the T, as T-Bob is in Mobile. He and Hester are there for OTV all week at the Senior Bowl, doing an awesome job catching up with the movers and the shakers. And this week, of course, in the NFL, you have gigantic news. Tom Brady earlier today announced his retirement from the NFL. And yesterday, Sean Payton, it was finalized that he's heading to Denver. So we'll talk a lot about that today. We're glad to have you aboard with us here. Do us a quick solid, if you would. Smash the like button. For those of you who are still hanging on, we appreciate you for hanging on with us. Smash the like button. Subscribe up to the YouTube channel. Facebook, please like the 104.5 ESPN page and share the post. If you're listening on demand, we appreciate that greatly as well. Subscribe up on your favorite podcast app. So a lot we're going to get to today. We will talk plenty of NFL, and we'll also talk National Signing Day. It was a quiet day for LSU, but we'll get into some of that. And if because it's just me tonight, I'm just not going to sit here and monologue for an hour. The best way to do this is, like, for those of you who watch Morning Scone or used to watch Nightcap with Scone during the pandemic when we did that show before we started this show. The best thing to do is just to interact. So I'll keep my eye on the chat the whole show on YouTube and on Facebook, and we'll just have a convo. So we appreciate y'all for hanging out with us here on Scone T from Oliver Twist. Great spot right here in the heart of Baton Rouge on Perkins Road. More than 1,000 bottles of whiskey, the best selection you'll find in Baton Rouge. Our break-even pour tonight is the Old Elk Sherry Cask Finish. Fired up to give this a go. Every week when we're here, they will offer a rare or allocated whiskey at a break-even price to where they're not making money on it. It's basically just their break-even price. So tonight it's the Old Elk Sherry Cask. A big fan of Old Elk. Shout out to my guy, Luis Gonzalez, a Baton Rouge native, who is the CEO of Old Elk out in Fort Collins. So they do awesome work. If you're not familiar, Greg Metz, who was the master distiller for MPG for a lot of years, it was hired by Old Elk, does all their distilling, and they have put out amazing whiskey. So check it out. This is the Sherry Cask Finish, which will be our break-even pour tonight. Ooh, beautiful on the nose. All right,
we'll say some good evenings to everybody. We appreciate y'all for hanging out. We had a little technical difficulties as we started, so thanks for hanging out with us. Roy Lassane, Lyle Plauché, Truax, what's good? Appreciate all y'all for hanging out. Bob Bethaney, Elliot Williams, all of our YouTube folks as well. Trivia Carter, Anthony Parker, Kobe, Dustin Hebert, T. Bubba's Sports Talk, what's going on? Who Dat Talking, Zandel Moore. We appreciate y'all for hanging out. So a couple things. Tom Brady announced he was retiring today. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about Tom Brady and his retirement. We did that last year. I think what's super relevant about that is it does open the door in the division again for the Saints, oddly. I mean, it was the worst division in football. And in my perspective, and I'm sure a lot of you shared it, was, hey, look, man, the Saints have to stop. It's time to stop kicking the can down the road, and it's time to build for your future. And it's not something where I'm not coming with hindsight and saying they were wrong to do what they did. I was okay with what they did. I always want to put that on the record. I was okay with the way the Saints managed their organization, their roster, their cap, because they were trying to win now. They were in perpetual win-now mode with Drew Brees, and I was good with that. Like, you got an aging quarterback, get a second Super Bowl. They went all in. They leveraged their future. They bought on credit for a half a decade, and now the bills are due. And they made a lot of bad personnel decisions. You know, they let Trey Hendrickson walk and decided they were going to put their eggs in the Marcus Davenport basket. That didn't work. They let Von Bell and Marcus Williams walk. Well, you bring back Malcolm Jenkins, who was a good player but was late in his career. Obviously, Marcus May wasn't healthy this year. You know the list. It's a long list. You put a lot of money into Michael Thomas, and he delivered the first year, and he's given you nothing for 3 years since. So it just didn't work. I was okay with the strategy. It just didn't work. But the reason, even a year ago at this time, the reason why it was plausible to say, hey, go all in. Look, I mean, a lot of people were picking the Saints to be a playoff team, to win the division. Bart Scott picked him in the Super Bowl. I think Peter King had him in the Super Bowl. Like, it was logical to say, hey, look, they were 9-8, and that was, you were 5-2 with Jameis, and then you got hurt in them with Trevor Siemian and Taysom Hill, and Ian Book. You still go 9-8, and you miss the playoffs by you're down in Week 18 watching the Rams-Niners, and you were right there, and so now you're healthy, and you brought in Jarvis and Tyron, and Michael Thomas is back healthy. There was a lot of reason to believe that they were going to be good this year, and just didn't work out. And I'm of the belief that it's time to start the rebuild. But when you look at the division now, Christ almighty, y'all, are we talking about Sam Darnold in Carolina? Blaine Gabbert in Tampa? I mean, Desmond Ridder in Atlanta? And then Andy Dalton in New Orleans? Might be the worst quarterback division in the history of the NFL. Like, I'm not into hyperbole, but it may be. Like, it may be the worst quarterback division ever. So, look, I think 3 of the 4 teams are going to draft quarterbacks. I think the Panthers, Bucks, Saints are all going to draft quarterbacks. But so if you're Mickey Loomis, you literally might be sitting there today, having gone from, it's probably time to start trying a rebuild, to, well, Tom Brady's gone. Look at the quarterbacks in the division. You could actually win it and make the playoffs, which isn't a crazy thought. So I'm not hopeful that. I'm not optimistic. I don't think Dennis Allen is the guy, and the Saints made another head-scratching move today, letting Chris Richard walk. They mutually agreed to part ways. So now Ryan Nielsen, your co-defensive coordinator, leaves for the Atlanta Falcons, and Chris Richard, the other co-DC, is walking as well. I would presume he'll go seek a DC job somewhere else. But I don't know necessarily that it hurts the Saints, because Dennis Allen's been calling the defense, and that wasn't the problem. The problem was you needed to make wholesale changes on your offense, and you did, and you're probably going to suck there again. So Tom Brady retires. You look at what that means for the division, and it means it's open. It's pretty wide open again. All right, and today was National Signing Day, so we'll get into some of that as well. LSU, for the first time in its history, did not sign a player on the February signing day. All the hay was in the barn, 25 high school signees. They had the 5th best high school signing class, the top-rated transfer portal class, and so it averaged out to be the fourth best blended class in the country this year. So Brian Kelly and his staff did great work to rebuild this roster in spots where they needed it. There was one player, Jamel Howard, a defensive lineman out of the Chicago area, who they were waiting to see where he would land. Ultimately, he picked Wisconsin. He was a one-time Wisconsin commit, decommitted when the staff got fired. Luke Fickell got hired. Ultimately, he recommitted and signed there today. So if LSU makes moves, it'll be, more transfer portal moves that may come later down the line. Ja'Kai Clark is a center from Miami who started 42 games, who's got an LSU offer and is, going to visit LSU. And, they may add guys on the interior of that offensive line and may add other spots as well as it moves along. So we got a lot to get to here. Fire away with your questions. LSU basketball is at Missouri tonight. If you're watching or listening on demand, that's not going to be relevant to you. But you want to talk some LSU baseball or Saints, NFL, or LSU football signing day, it's all on the table. So fire away. Bob Athene said, what are the Saints going to do about quarterback? Today, ESPN.com, they had a really good piece where they tried to sort of project the quarterback carousel this offseason. And they had their NFL Nation reporters, they had their front office people, their national reporters, their draft analysts, everybody get together and give all the different opinions and try to project what quarterbacks were going to end up where. And I'll give you a little bit of a spoiler. They have the Saints ultimately re-signing Andy Dalton and drafting Hendon Hooker, which I think seems pretty plausible. People have asked about Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers leaves Green Bay, he's only going to go to a place where he feels like he can win a championship. That's not New Orleans. Jimmy Garoppolo, you would presume, is going to have multiple opportunities as well. Given multiple opportunities, New Orleans isn't going to be the most appealing. As for Derek Carr, I'd say the very same thing. You're not going to trade for Derek Carr because, as we often say, you're not just trading for the player, you're trading for the contract. So, when you look at Derek Carr's contract, it's enormous. I pull it up. I mean, he signed a 3-year, $121 million contract. So if you were to trade for Derek Carr, you'd be sending draft assets to the Raiders and taking on a contract that in 2023 he'd be owed $34.8 million. That'd be his cap hit. And then in 2024, his cap hit would be 43.8. And then in 2025, it'd be 43.1. So there is just no reality in which the Saints are going to commit 38, 43, 43 million over the next 3 years to Derek Carr. So you'd wait for him to get cut by the Raiders and then see if you could sign him. But again, if he has options, he's not going to pick New Orleans. That's the problem the Saints are going to have. New Orleans isn't appealing. You're not a team that's a quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl. You're not. Your defense played well in the second half last year, but your offensive line needs work. You're probably going to cut Andrews Pete as a cap casualty. You don't have running back help. Chris Olave, I think you're very high on as a young receiver, but you're kind of back in the same spot. You're going to cut Michael Thomas. You're probably not re-signing Jarvis Landry as well. So you got Chris Olave and who else? Rashid Shaheed, who I like. A good young player, young talented guy. People ordering that old elk sherry cask. How about that? Let's get you know what? Let's do a toast here. Let's do a little bit of a whiskey and wine toast, if you would. Hold up your glass, toast with us here. T-Bob's not here, but whatever you're sipping. Cheers to Oliver Twist, all of you who are hanging out with us here for Scone T. To our friends here at Oliver Twist, who've opened their doors to us and given us this space every single week and invited us back, which has been awesome. They've been great partners of ours, so we appreciate it. Cheers to all of you. That's fantastic. So the sherry cask finish is just what it says. They distill their bourbon and then they finish it in sherry cask, so you get a lot of that sweet, like sherry liqueur type flavor. A little bit of the reddish hue on it as well. I don't know if y'all can see that because of the lighting in here, but it's really, really good. Fantastic. All right. Zandel Moore said, what the fuck is wrong with the Saints, man? They lose 2 defensive coordinators. Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what's going on. It's exactly what Dennis Allen said when he got the job. And he was asked in his introductory press conference if he was going to call the defense, and he said, it's sometimes hard to let go of your baby. And so Dennis Allen was the defensive coordinator, and really Ryan Nielsen and Chris Richard this year were just co-DCs nominally. They had the title, but they weren't actually co-DC or defensive coordinators. So, Nielsen goes to Atlanta. Remember, the Saints could block. Like, they have the right to block coaches from leaving for a lateral move. But because these guys were co-DCs, Nielsen getting the standalone DC job in Atlanta was a raise, was an improvement. It was an elevation and or an advancement. And we'll see with Richard. My guess is he wanted to go somewhere where he could actually have the autonomy to call the defense, which he didn't have and wasn't going to have clearly in New Orleans. The problem is, and by the way, Zandel, I don't think that's a problem. Dennis Allen was the DC when Nielsen and Richard were position coaches, and defense was great. Those guys were elevated. There were rough spots early, but when they were healthy, defense was really good. So I don't worry about that, man. The defense can be fine with Dennis Allen. I don't know that they'll be elite. They got some issues, which we'll talk about, but namely on the defensive line. But the bigger thing is the inability or unwillingness to fix your offense. You averaged 19 points a game. Your offense was shit. You were 22nd in the NFL in rush defense this year, which was a problem, but your offense was awful. So the fact that you maintain status quo with Pete Carmichael and you're likely going to bring back Andy Dalton tells you, you shouldn't expect any dramatic improvement on the Saints offense next year. Let's see. Brennan Huff, what's going on? Raymond Gregory Gordy, what's up? Was Musso a first-round pick? So we had, if you're just joining us, jumping aboard a little late, we had some audio issues as we got started. The kit that we usually use for this show is the kit that T-Bob and Hester took to Mobile for their Senior Bowl broadcast on OTB. So we have a backup kit. I'm not sure what kit this is that we're using, but anyway, it might be the whiskey and wine kit. But anyway, in any event, we're off, we're rolling, we're good. So we appreciate y'all for hanging out with us. Excuse me. All right, y'all smash the like button if you're watching on YouTube. We got 101 watching live, 31 likes. I know we can get that higher. Facebook, please like the page and share the post as well. Let's see. Sheldon Mark Fleming said they hired a passing or running game coordinator there, which I thought was strange. I don't know what that was. Sorry. Blaine Smith, the future looks bleak for the Saints. Salary cap hell. Terrible head coach. Cam and DeMario got a few more years. Won't get free agents to come here. You're not wrong. Sorry, I'm going full Jimmy Ott. They put these friggin', I don't know, shrimp Creole or whatever this is in front of me. It's phenomenal. I just can't look at them. I got to eat one. So, all right, does the future look bleak? Yes. For a lot of reasons, as you mentioned. They have a head coach I don't think can win. They have a terrible cap situation. You have aging veterans. A lot of reasons. Let's look at instead of just accentuating and magnifying the negative, which is there and I'm not avoiding, but let's look at how they can work through it. All right. You just recouped a first-round pick this year, so you have another asset, and next year's 3 essentially becomes a 2. Now, we'll see what that means as they go through this year because you've got a Denver team that's likely going to improve, which means their second-round pick that the Saints now own gets worse, and a Saints team which probably is going to be very bad, meaning the third-round pick, which Denver now owns, gets better. So the gap in those shrinks. We'll see what it ultimately means next year when the draft rolls around with the disparities in those picks. But most importantly, you got a first-round pick this year. And so now you have 2 picks in the top 40. You got number 29 and number 40. So let's see what they can flip those into, and maybe it becomes your quarterback of the future. You still have Kamara and Lattimore and some young talent defensively, and some players on the offensive line that are cornerstones that you can still build around. You're going to retain Eric McCoy at center, and you got Ryan Ramczyk, who, when he's healthy, is one of the best right tackles in the league. You drafted Trevor Penning, who you hope becomes a starter, maybe your franchise left tackle. So there are pieces there that you can use as a foundation to start to build around if you hit at the quarterback spot. But that's still right now a big if, and we'll see how it goes. Let's see. Elliott Williams said record projection for the Saints next year. I don't know, man. I really don't want to get to that right now because we got to see not only we know who they're going to play, but the when you play teams matters. Like we talked about this year, they go play Minnesota in London, and then they have to come back on a short week. Like, you're disadvantaged when you have to do that. When they had to go Tampa to San Francisco, you went coast to coast on a short week, like Monday night against Tampa, then you're on the opposite coast 6 days later to play San Francisco. That's a disadvantage. So I'm not ready to give a win-loss record until I see the schedule. But, I mean, I'm not going to project the Saints to be above 500. I mean, barring something horribly unforeseen, that might be in the Saints' favor. It's hard to imagine that. So, hey, turn my headphones up, please. Yeah. All right. Abby Celestine, what's going on? Bilbo said shrimp. Yeah, man, I don't know what these are, but they're fantastic. They're like, it's shrimp Creole. Oh, it's shrimp and grits is what it is. I didn't even realize that's grits down there. Look, this is grits. Holy moly, it's shrimp and grits. Dude, this place, the food here is so massively underrated. I don't think anybody, when they're thinking of like great cuisine in Baton Rouge, probably thinks Oliver Twist. You think Oliver Twist for great whiskey selection, craft cocktails, like that's what they're known for. That's what they get like Best of 225 for all the time. But dude, Chef did an awesome job with this menu. I'm telling you, it's friggin' phenomenal. Like, everything on this menu, everything they bring us every week is just phenomenal. Great place for dinner. I mean, you see the bar behind us, and they have these bar tables right here on this wall. But the dining room is on the other side of the camera, and they've got 8-10 tables over there that can probably seat at least 50 people, maybe more than that. So, y'all think about Oliver Twist, man. It's a great spot. Let's see. I appreciate the Saints got something versus nothing, but a first, a second, we gave a third. Saints trying to spin that as an A+. You know what? And let's see, that's late Apex. So, I don't know, man. I guess maybe okay. I understand if you're a Saints fan why you look at the Sean Payton deal and you're a little pissed. I do get it. Because we all thought, and the conversation was, hey, well, look at what the John Gruden trade was. And so in your mind, you're thinking Saints are going to get, multiple ones or whatever was in your head. But I think you have to understand in any negotiation, and this isn't just for NFL picks, but like anybody who's ever negotiated and you negotiate a contract or anything like that. Like, so much of what comes down to a negotiation is who has leverage, like who has the thing the other party wants. And in this instance, I think Denver had DeMeco Ryans as their number one choice. Sean Payton wasn't their number one choice. DeMeco Ryans picked the Texans. And Denver also went on Saturday and met with Jim Harbaugh up in Ann Arbor and very easily could have hired any number of coaches that weren't Sean Payton. Now, Sean Payton may have been the best choice that they had that they wanted, but the question is always at what cost. So Denver wanted Sean Payton, but it wasn't a be-all, end-all. And the Saints stood to not get anything for Sean Payton if he didn't coach. So, like, Sean Payton wasn't helping. He wasn't an asset that was helping the Saints in any way while he was not coaching. So if you're New Orleans, the worst-case scenario is let 2 years expire, or even then next year when Sean Payton's value is even lower, another year removed with only 1 year left on his rights, and you get nothing for it. So the fact that you got a first-round pick albeit a late one, but you got a first-round pick, and you upgraded your 3 to a 2. Now, the Saints didn't get 2 picks. You got 1 pick. You got 1 pick, and you upgraded your 3 to a 2. And we just talked about how that may not even be impressive next year if the Saints have a bad year and Denver has a good year. Denver's 2 moves back in round 2, and the Saints 1, if they're bad, moves up in round 3. So the disparity in those picks may not be great, but it's still going to be better having a 2. Even if you have the last pick in round 2 as opposed to the first pick in round 3, it's obviously better. So, I know there's some Saints fans that are pissed saying they got robbed or whatever, but you got to realize what Sean Payton's value was, and the market value wasn't what we thought or hoped it would be. What you wanted was a bidding war. What you wanted was 2, 3, 4 teams all trying to hire Sean Payton, which wasn't the case. He interviewed with a lot of places, but Carolina hired Frank Reich. The Texans made DeMeco Ryans their primary target. I don't think Sean was ever realistically going to Arizona, so really it came down to Denver. It came down to Denver. So, I think the Saints knew Denver was the only spot where they were going to be able to get a deal done, and Denver knew that they were going to have to give up something, but didn't have to give up a ton. And what's more, remember, Denver gave up a ton already to acquire Russell Wilson. So how many assets realistically do they even have looking ahead? How much are they willing to give up? Because, now Denver essentially is banking on Sean Payton. They're looking at the roster they have saying, okay, Sean Payton can take this roster and make us a contender. That's what they're banking on, because they had already given up picks for Russ, and now they gave up the one that they got in the Bradley Chubb trade for Sean Payton. So they're essentially saying, we believe Sean Payton can take this roster and win right now. And that's a big gamble. So they took a big risk too, man. I kind of get the deal working out how it was. The market for Sean wasn't – it comes down to this image. The market for Sean wasn't what a lot of us hoped or thought it would be. All right, smash that like button if you would. You know what this tastes like, this Sherry Cask finish hold up? You ever had Big Red or Cinnaburst? Remember the gum Cinnaburst? That's what this tastes like. It tastes like Cinnaburst. You know Cinnaburst, wasn't Cinnaburst the gum where you could eat the wrapper? I'm not making that up, right? Cinnaburst was the gum where you could eat the wrapper. That's what that tastes like. It tastes like Cinnaburst. Really good. Let's see, Kobe said Anthony Richardson. He'll be off the board when the Saints pick. Merrick Mathern asked Matt, if a quarterback the Saints want at 29 is not there, what position is the most needed? I don't know if y'all would agree with this. For me, I think it's your defensive line. You dropped to 22 in the NFL in rush defense, and you had no pass rush. Peyton Turner gave you 0. Marcus Davenport got a half a sack. Really, you've got Cam Jordan, Carl Granderson. That's it. You have an aging David Onyemata, who's a free agent now. You got Malcolm Roach, Shy Tuttle. Your defensive line has got to get remade. I wouldn't even be opposed to saying, hey, if Apu Ika is there at 29, take Ika at 29 and cross your fingers and hope that Hendon Hooker's there when you pick at 40. I think that's a really good approach. But for me, that's easy, man. It's defensive line. They've got to address defensive line. Your Fave 5 head, chances Saints tank for Caleb Williams. You'll know after the draft, right? If they take a quarterback this year, I don't think they're tanking, and I don't think the Saints are in tank mode anyway. They may be among the worst teams in the NFC next year. I think that's really plausible. If Andy Dalton's your quarterback again, you lose Andrus Peat, you don't really address running back, your run defense isn't very good. It's super plausible that the Saints could be the worst team in the NFC. And remember, it's not just Caleb Williams. You'll have Drake May in next year's draft as well from North Carolina. So presumably you're going to have 2 really good quarterbacks at the top of that draft next year. So the opportunity could be there for New Orleans to pick one. Dustin Blanchard, Jesus Carr is way overpaid. The Raiders gave him a massive contract last year, and that's the problem. It's I don't mean to sound redundant, but when the quarterback market is set, right? And so when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, it's why you got to make your headway. because eventually you're going to have to pay him, and that's going to eat up a giant chunk of your salary cap. It's why the Bengals right now with Burrow on a rookie deal got to maximize his time, because the time's coming where they're going to have to pay him $500 million. I mean, if they fall in line and give him a 10-year deal like Kansas City did with Mahomes, which why wouldn't the Bengals do that? Give him a 10-year, $500 million contract, and by the end of that deal, paying your quarterback $50 million is going to seem like a bargain, because then quarterbacks should be making $100 million a year. So, but that's the danger, man. They had to make a decision on Carr. They decided to pay him on a short-term deal, a 3-year deal. They had some protections that allow him to get out with lower dead cap figures, but that's why Carr is basically untradeable right now. Nobody's going to give the Raiders assets to take on that deal. Same thing with Michael Thomas. People keep coming at me all the time about trading Michael Thomas. The Saints aren't trading Michael Thomas. No one is going to give the Saints assets in order to take on a player that hadn't played in 3 years, that has a $100 million contract. Let's see. Jacques Cormery, what's going on? Ask Scone T, is Hooker really worth it to the Saints? Is Richardson really worthy of a first-round pick? Hey, man, look. One at a time. Is Hooker worth it to the Saints? To me, yes. I like Hendon Hooker. Accuracy on the deep ball, big dude, 6'5", mature, leader. I like Hendon Hooker a lot. Is Richardson a first-round pick? I don't know. That's up for – Tim Tebow was a first-round pick. Christian Ponder was a first-round pick. Blaine Gabbert was a first-round pick. Jake Locker was a first-round pick. Mitchell Trubisky was the third overall pick. Jamarcus, Ryan Leaf. Run down the list, man. Drafting quarterbacks in the first round is a 50-50 proposition. It just is, man. Like, look at first-round picks, and it basically, the math comes down to like a 50-50 proposition of if quarterbacks succeed, first-round quarterbacks succeed or fail. So, I could point out Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and Josh Allen, and I could point out Mitchell Trubisky and Blaine Gabbert and guys of that like. Zach Wilson was the number 2 overall pick. Sam Darnold was the number 3 overall pick. Baker Mayfield was the number 1 overall pick. Like, it's not a sure thing. So, is Richardson worth it? You see a dude that's that big, athletic, the arm strength, the mobility, the ability. Yeah, some team will fall in love with him and say, we can use that guy. They'll look at Lamar Jackson and say, Lamar Jackson, is as dynamic a quarterback as we've seen in the NFL since Michael Vick. He won an MVP, Anyway. Braden LaRussa, ready for LSU baseball. Yeah, man, I'm right there with you, dude. LSU baseball is going to be so much fun. I know we've hyped them up tremendously, and I sure hope it doesn't get to a point where we've overhyped them to the point where if they hit some speed bumps in the season, people get down on them. But, man, the talent is there, and if they can put it all together, it's going to be a lot of fun. Coney Brunet, do you think the Saints are hoping Sean would take Sneaky Pete to Denver with him so they don't have to fire him? Maybe, Cody, but it's the NFL, man, and I'll remind you, if Sean Payton wanted to hire – this will be your telltale. If Sean Payton wanted to hire Pete Carmichael, he couldn't. The Saints could block it because it's a lateral move. So the Saints could block that hire. That would tell you everything you need to know. Munch1127 asks Matt, why not tank and skip the quarterback in this draft and try to get Caleb Williams next year? I just don't think that they're in tank mode. I get it. I'm not opposed to the idea, but I also think you should probably be taking a quarterback every year at this point because, look, and I'm an outlier on this one, but the Saints in their history have used one first-round pick on a quarterback. Archie Manning, that's it. It's the only time in their history they've ever used a first-rounder on a quarterback. And the quarterbacks they've drafted over the years have been a lot of Danny Werfel and Heath Schuler and Sean Canfield and Garrett Grayson and Ian Book, and they haven't really taken a swing on trying to land a big-time quarterback in the draft. They've perpetually played the bridge, young veteran, find the guy off the scrap heap, and it took them 40 years to find Drew Brees, and it could take them 40 years to find another one at that rate. I think you've got to draft quarterbacks until you find one. I mean, and you can find Jalen Hurts in round 2. You can find Russell Wilson in round 3. You can find Dak Prescott in round 4, Kirk Cousins. I mean, it's uncommon, but you can find Brock Purdy in round 7. They're out there, man. If you trust your scouting department and you develop and your ability to develop, go get them. All right. We're here at Oliver Twist, Scone T on Perkins Road. We appreciate y'all for hanging out with us as always. Von Bluesman, Matt, do you think LSU filled all their needs with the signing class? Do we have the depth that we need to finish the season strong? Vaughn, I do, man. My one concern about LSU is, let me say, obviously they got to fix all the special teams fuck-ups. We curse here, by the way, if you're new. So apologies for those that may not be aware. We do curse, so NSFW, all that stuff. You have to fix your special teams gaffes. I don't know if they have or will. That's one. 2, it's depth on the offensive line. I like your first 5 a lot, obviously, in whatever order they line up. With Campbell and Frazier and Turner and Emory Jones and Dellinger, whatever order they line up, those 5 I like a lot. If Marlon Martinez is number 6, I feel good there. And maybe Lance Hurd comes in and is a stud. But really, after those first 6, you have no experience. So, if you twist an ankle, turn a knee, sprain a shoulder, whatever it may be, you're thin. And so that's why they've looked at adding some depth there. Ja'Kai Clark from Miami is a guy they're obviously talking to. So that's the one spot I'd say that they could still stand to add. Let's see. Kobe says 2024, Dennis Allen gets fired. Sean Payton hires Dennis as the DC in Denver. All the word is that Sean Payton's going to hire Vic Fangio as his DC in Denver. If that's the case, I don't know that DA is going to be there. I think Sean will be fine there. One, Nardi, Dustin Hebert, what's going on? Merrick, is Peyton Turner a bust? Yes. It's a little early to call it completely, but as of now, I don't know how you say anything to the contrary. You used a first-round pick on him. They sort of knew they were drafting the athlete that they hoped could develop. He did have an injury history at the University of Houston, and in his career in 2 seasons, he's played in 13 games. He's played in 13 games with 3 sacks and 20 tackles for his career in 2 seasons. Yes, and it's all about expectation based on the assets you gave up to acquire that player. So when you used a first-round pick on Peyton Turner, and through 2 seasons he's played in 13 games, got 20 tackles and 3 sacks, yeah, that's fair. If he were an undrafted free agent and he was a guy that was giving you meaningful snaps, being signed off the practice squad back and forth and shit, yeah, okay, I'll take that from him. But you've got more invested in him, so you expect more of a return. Let's see, Scona, who was the thinking head for the personnel, Peyton or Mickey? We know the money guy is as good as there is. He's forced to do the deals. So the money guy is Kai Harley. As far as personnel, Sean and Mickey kind of were hand in hand. And remember, they did they brought in Ireland from Miami. So when Ireland came in here, he helped revamp the scouting process throughout the draft, and there's a very obvious parallel to him arriving and the Saints getting on track with the draft. So, I think there's a lot of credit to go around. Let's see, ask Scone T, should the Pelicans look for a trade or be patient, wait for players to get healthy? It's interesting because when they were healthy, the thing we talked about was how they're the deepest team in the league. And how they had 11 guys that they could play, and how when they got to the playoffs, they'd pare it down to their best 8, and could their best 8 win a best-of-7 series? And so I don't want to overreact. Now, I know Jackson Hayes said he wants to be done in New Orleans and wants to be traded. I don't blame him. I mean, his minutes are gone, and he's been way too hot and cold of a player for a guy that they use such a high pick on as well. So if you want to trade Jackson Hayes and you feel like there's a player you can get or assets you can get, fine. But mostly, I think this team needs to get healthy, needs to be rested. I think with B.I. and Zion out, you ask CJ to do way too much. He's gassed. With B.I. and Zion out, you lose 50 points per night. It's just name a team in the NBA that can lose their two best players and not be effective. Like, take LeBron and Anthony Davis off the Lakers. What are they? Take Murray and Jokic off of Denver. What are they? Like, you got to be realistic about what happens when you lose those players. So the concern is you don't get B.I. and Zion healthy and everybody back together and you fizzle. You continue to fizzle. The best, or you can't keep him healthy long term. But for this season, man, you got 32 games remaining. Or 30 games. I think so they're 26 and 26. That's 52. So you got 30 games remaining. What's it going to take? Can you go 20 and 10 over the next 30? You go 20 and 10 and you're at 46 wins. That's going to put you right there in conversation to be a top 6 and you avoid the play-in. I think for this team, that was probably the preseason goal. I think we recalibrated our expectation because of the way they started. But, I think there's still a ton of I was thinking about this last night. Tell me if this makes sense. You know how like in the high school playoffs sometimes, I know this is weird, just stay with me. There's a team that's like 10-0, but they used an ineligible player, so they forfeited like 5 games. And so although they're really like 10-0 and should be the 1 seed, they're 5-5 because they forfeited half their season, and so they're like the 30th seed. And so like you end up the number 2 seed, but you draw an opening round matchup against like the best team. That's what it kind of feels like. The Pels are probably, because of the injuries, going to fall. It's a lot what people thought about the Lakers last year because they were so injured and they fell all the way out of the playoffs, as we know. But the feeling on the Lakers last year late in the season was if they could get healthy enough late and just get in, they could be dangerous. Well, they didn't get in. I kind of feel the same about the Pels. Just get in. You know what I mean? All right, a few more. Smash that like button on YouTube. We appreciate you for being there. Facebook, please like the page, share the post. Tony Williams, what's up? Stephen Walzak. Does Kim Mulkey in the women's basketball beat Jay Johnson and baseball to a national championship? Stephen, I'll tell you this, man. It's so hard to predict a baseball national championship. Here's what I mean. LSU baseball is the best team in college baseball this year. They're the best team. Got the best talent, best players, all that stuff. It's not a guarantee they're going to win the national championship. Since 1999, with this current format, the super regional format, the number 1 national seed has won the national championship once. It was the first year. Miami did it in 99. No number 1 overall seed has won it since. Tennessee last year was by far the best team in college baseball. Didn't make it to Omaha. So you can be the best team and not win it. In women's basketball, I think there are fewer elite teams, so you can it's almost like in college football where before the season the half dozen teams that are going to be in the playoff, right? It's Bama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, LSU, USC. Like we all know the teams, right? I mean, it's Michigan. It's the same 8 to 10 teams that are going to be competing for it every year. Because there's a massive gap after those halves to the rest of college football because of the way the system's structured. Now, that changes when the playoff expands, I think. But anyway, that's like women's basketball. Like in LSU is in that short list of teams that can win it. And I think if LSU doesn't win it this year, I think next year they'll probably be the women's basketball team, I think, will be the preseason favorite to win it next year. When you have Angel Reese back and you add that number 1 recruiting class coming in. So really it's like I'm dodging your question, but Jay Johnson could win it this year. I don't think Kim Mulkey and the Lady Tigers are winning the championship this year. Jay Johnson could. If Jay doesn't, then I think Kim wins it next year. Let's see. All right. Appreciate y'all hanging out, man. And everybody who comes over here to Oliver Twist. Great spot. Right here in the heart of Baton Rouge. Great food, too. Shrimp and grits. Y'all try it next time you come. All right. A few more. We got about 12 minutes to go. Shaba 6884, what's up? Dustin Blanchard, people act like Mike Thomas still has value. If you as a fan don't want him, nobody else wants him. Dustin, that's a point I've made a lot, and I'll do this for the benefit of those that have never heard me do it, just because we're on a different format here. But if you look at the Michael Thomas contract, when the Saints restructured him, here's his deal. Michael Thomas in 2023, the Saints again restructured him, right? But he's got a cap hit of $13.5 million, and then in 2024, his cap hit is $59.4 million. That has made him untradeable. He was untradeable before, now he's really not. Because no team would give the Saints an asset to take on a contract whereby Michael Thomas in 2024, a guy who's 30 years old now, or will be 30 in, his birthday's coming up. His birthday's coming up later this month. So he'll be 30 later this month. Actually, let's see. He's 29 years, 342 days, so 365. So 23 days. So he'll be 30 in 23 days. So, yeah, later this month. Nobody is going to pay $59 million in 2024 to a guy that hasn't played in 3 years. So he's untradeable. There is no value in Mike Thomas. The Saints they reworked the deal so that they could release him as a post-June 1 designation. They'll get cap relief. They gave him some cash, and he'll go play for somebody else. You're not getting anything from Michael Thomas. Let's see, Shaba 6884 said all in for Carr and a rookie quarterback in the first or second round. The problem is Derek Carr is going to have to pick you, and if you're a free agent quarterback, if you're a free agent quarterback with options, why would you pick the Saints? Why would you pick the Saints? Munch 1127 asked Matt, to be clear on skipping the quarterback this year, was just first-round pick at 29 or trading up? Hooker at 40 should be the pick. Gotcha. Chris Demouy. What's up, Demu? Calic, former Tiger great. Two-time Natty champ. Appreciate you for being here, Demu. So, Carr. I wasn't pointing out Carr. I was just saying, like, that's happened. I remember, I called high school football games for about 10 years, and there were years where that happened. I know back in, like, this is way old school, but like in 96, West Monroe was 6-4 because they forfeited several games, but like they should have, like the Catholic West Monroe semifinal game should have been like a 1-versus-2 matchup, but West Monroe they forfeited games, so they were 6-4, right? Anyway. Tommy Banks, bro. Fucking Tommy Banks. All right. Let's see. Bird Boy 878. Do you still have a first-round grade on Kayshon Boutte? If so, would you want the Saints to grab him at 29? No, I do not want the Saints. I do not want the Saints to take Kayshon or any receiver at 29. They have way bigger needs. Like, I can get down with my combination of, even if, look, Michael Thomas will be gone. I think Jarvis isn't going to re-sign either. I can get down with Chris Olave as my one, Marquez Callaway, Rashid Shaheed. We'll see what happens with Deontay Hardy. You've really found something, I think, in Juwan Johnson. You need to re-sign him. So I guess my point is Alvin Kamara as a pass catcher. I have enough pass catchers. That's not my dire need. You need defensive linemen. You're probably going to need an offensive lineman because I think Pete's going to be a cap casualty. And maybe that means Trevor Pennick slides in as your starting left guard. Or maybe he becomes your left tackle. I don't know yet, but you need defensive linemen badly. Let's see. Whose contract should they pay then? Are you talking about what Saints players should they? Well, I mean, it's going to have to be players that are affordable. I mean, I think you have to re-sign Caden Ellis. Caden Ellis became your second leading sacker on this team. And you've got Pete Werner, and Demario Davis isn't going to play forever. So I think you've got to lock up Caden Ellis while you can affordably. I think you got to re-sign Juwan Johnson, who we just talked about as well. You've been searching for that pass-catching tight end. You seem to have found him. It took a little while in development, but you developed this guy, and now pay him. I think that's where they are right now. And you're going to get to that point where some of these draft picks start to get toward a second contract. You're going to have to make a decision eventually on Pete Werner. You're going to have to eventually, in 3 years, pay Olave and Penning and those guys. But you're a ways off still from that. The key for New Orleans is getting a bunch of starters on rookie contracts. Like, that's what they did in 2017. The core of your team in 17-18 were these guys that you drafted and you had on inexpensive rookie deals. From Michael Thomas and Ryan Ramczyk and Marshawn Lattimore and Marcus Williams and Alvin Kamara. You had all these star players on rookie deals, man. You had David Onyemata. So you were able to afford to go, supplement in free agency and spend a little bit of money. But, and pay Drew Brees what you were paying Drew Brees. Well, eventually you hope you're paying a quarterback because it means you got a great one, but you got to hit on the draft. I mean, that's the only way they get this thing back, in relatively short order. Let's see, Kayshawn needs to perform well in the pre-draft workouts to help quell the notion he wasn't a team player. It's not even performance. That's more answering questions. And listen, I've had enough conversations over the years with scouts and NFL front office personnel and executives. They know. They know everything. Like, they have – I'll tell you all a story. Our good friend Carly McCord. I don't know if y'all know this. Like, Carly McCord was hired by the Cleveland Browns by Michael Lombardi, who is the GM of the Cleveland Browns. Michael Lombardi hired Carly to be sort of like a investigator. Her job, because she knew everybody and talked to everybody and people would talk to her job with the Cleveland Browns was she had to go find out what rumors were out there, if they were true, how to get, that was her job for the Cleveland Browns. So, these teams have, when you're investing that kind of money into assets, players, but, whatever your business, in this business it's people, you want to minimize risk. You want to know everything about it. So the point is with Kayshawn, they're going to know every damn thing about Kayshawn the minute he walks into those meetings at the Combine. They just want to know, is he going to be honest? Is he going to be forthright? Is he going to be approachable? Is he going to be contrite about the things that he should be contrite about? You know what I mean? That's the ticket to it. Kayshawn is going to run and jump and catch and do all the stuff that he does exceptionally well because he's a freak. The question about Kayshawn is, is he a team guy? The off-the-field stuff, what went on, all that. Why did you declare for the draft, or you come back then declare all that? And they're going to know the answers. He's just going to have to go answer them truthfully when he's talking to them. Let's see, Merrick, what's the cap hit for Michael Thomas in 2024? Just went over that. It's $59 million, which is why he's not going to be on the roster. So the Saints are going to eat his dead money. And it'll be a post-June 1 release designation. So they'll cut him, but it'll be post-June 1. So his dead cap in 23 will be 11.9. His dead cap in 24 will be 14.1. So it's, that's what it's going to be. That's what they're going to do. When they restructured his deal, that's why they restructured his deal. Trey Potan, if baseball's fielding improves, they have a great chance. 960 won't cut it. For those that don't know, you're typically in baseball, you want your fielding percentage to be above 980 as a team. And there are spots where you're going to have a lower, like third base, you're going to have a lower percentage than you will, say, at first base. But 980 is about where you want to be. Last year was terrible, but they will be a better team this year. Let's see, a lot of edge rushers will probably go in the first 2 rounds, which gives the Saints a good option to best players available in other positions. I think that's true in every draft. Every draft has a run on a certain position. Like some drafts are loaded with receivers, some are loaded with quarterbacks, some are loaded with offensive linemen, whatever. And it means that there are other players that will fall, and if it happens to be a player at a position of need for you and there's value, you take that player. Any more. We'll go quick. Dustin Blanchard asks Scone, who wins the second base gig? I think Guidry will get the job eventually. Dustin, yes, I will tell you that opening day, I think opening day, Jack Merrifield is probably your starter at second, if I had to guess today. And but I do think Gavin Guidry is the heir apparent. He's the guy that ultimately the talent will win out. I think Gavin Guidry will be your starter at second as the season moves along. And then next year, when Jordan Thompson's gone, Guidry is your starting shortstop. Like Terrio did that. Terrio was the second baseman in '99 as a freshman, and then 2000, 2001 was the starting shortstop. I think that's exactly what Gavin Guidry does. Richard Horner, what's going on? I'd love to guard at 29. I'd love a guard at 29 and Hooker at 40. I'd be down with that, or a defensive tackle at 29 and Hooker at 40. If you can get Hooker at 40 and take the best player at 29, I think that's a great option. And Dustin Abear, whoa, eating the wrapper. Yeah, man, you never ate the wrapper on Cinnaburst? I'm not making that up, right? Y'all did eat the wrapper on Cinnaburst gum, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I did. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for us here, man. A little Scone T from Oliver Twist. No T-Bob today, so we appreciate y'all for interacting. T-Bob will be back with me next week. And we appreciate, of course, Oliver Twist. They also own Rock Paper Tacos, so we're probably going to volley locations a little bit if you're trying to catch up with us live. But we appreciate you for hanging out as always. On your way out, please smash that like button on YouTube. Subscribe up to the Watch 104.5 ESPN YouTube channel. Facebook, please like the 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge page and share this post. Many, many thanks to our friends here at Oliver Twist on Perkins Road in Baton Rouge. Y'all come and see them. Until next time, Scone T. Boo. Boo. All right, done.